So I guess we should introduce everybody. Let's see, online we have Christine.
Good morning, Christine.
And here we have Jack and Dan
Howdy.
and Rick and Byron and Dakota, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Hopefully some more will show up late, but we'll just get going. So the purpose of this class is to prepare you to take the technician or element 2 exam. And we're going to go over all 400 and I believe it's 7 questions in the question pool. So regardless of which ones you get, you should know the answer. I based it on Dan Romanchik's no nonsense study guide, because he rearranges the material and starts with the technical and the basic electronic stuff first before you get into operations and rules and regulations, things like that, which seem to make more sense. I kind of do it in association with the 2 of the local clubs, the Indian River Amateur Radio Club and the Platinum Coast Amateur Radio Society in Melbourne. This one is, I had to shorten a little bit because of some conflicts at the end. So it's going to be 6 weeks instead of the normal 8. So it's be a little more compressed and hopefully won't spend too much time and side conversations and things. Otherwise, we'll be here all day. And of course, it's no cost. ARL does not allow me to charge for the class. So I guess first question is, why do you want to get licensed? There's just all sorts of reasons. There's contesting. There's QRP, which is operating at reduced power. Byron here is our local QRP guru. There's a lot of people still into CW. I understand it's getting more popular because of its narrow bandwidth. You can actually make contacts at greater distances than you can on voice. Single sideband is a version of voice modulation. There are digital modes, which are very popular now, where you actually use a computer with your radio. It's somewhat automated. A lot of the old hams don't like it because you're not actually talking to anybody, but you're actually making a contact and passing the time, call sign, location data, and signal report. There are things called fox hunts, where people hide a transmitter and you have to go around and try to locate it with some direction finding type antennas. One of the things coming up here in 2 weeks is a field day where it's kind of a national thing. People go out and operate in the field, except all of them I've seen, they actually operate in a building somewhere. Since it's Florida, stay out of the sun.
Especially these last couple of days.
And there's always hot dogs and hamburgers and stuff. So it's like a picnic. Oh, here's somebody.
Let's not forget the bacon.
All right.
Yeah.
Apologize for the wait.
Are you Jess?
I am.
All right.
Okay, sit over there. You need to see better than Byron.
Yeah,
Oh,
there's
sorry.
that. You probably see
Yeah.
that.
You'll be able to see the screen.
We can put up another table if we need to.
We can make room.
Um,
Just don't cheat off my notes.
Yeah, I'll try. to-
as Byron was talking about earlier, there's a lot of people that like to talk to space station and satellites. Some people are into moon bounce, where you actually bounce a signal off of the moon to somebody about halfway around the earth. You could do that as a technician, however, you won't do it with a handy-talkie. It does require a little more equipment. Some very high gain antennas and usually a little more power. Although I recently saw an article on a guy doing it at 70 centimeters on 50 watts.
Bouncing off the atmosphere.
Similar, except the moon's a lot farther away.
Yeah. Never heard that.
And for the moon bound stuff, you're using basically UHF frequencies that go through the ionosphere. They don't normally bounce off, but they will bounce off a solid object like the moon. Unfortunately, the moon's not smooth, so they don't bounce off nicely.
And it's
I was wondering if they had an
curved the wrong way, too.
antenna up there.
And
Well, there is at least one up there, but I don't think it's for that.
And it's shaped the wrong way too. It's not, it's curved out instead of down.
It's actually a delta loop.
Oh.
It's the back, on the back of the rover. There's things, because they like to use acronyms called POTA, which is Parks on the Air, where people go out to basically a national park, or the state parks qualify.
I think so.
Parks that have a number. I'm not sure how they get a number. And they quote, activate it, and they go out and make, was it 10?
At least
Something,
10,
10 contacts.
tend to count as an activation, yeah.
There's one called SOTA, which is Summits on the Air, similar thing. People go out to mountaintops or summits and operate. Forgot what was LOTA.
I guess lighthouses on the air.
Lighthouses on the air.
Mhm.
And then there's the International Lighthouse and Lightship Weekend, which we do here at the Cape Canaveral Lighthouse. There's NODA, which is NASA on the Air, where NASA centers will go on to celebrate certain events like anniversaries of the moon landing and other launches, things like that. There's one that's, I don't know if it's still on, Museums on the Air.
Yeah.
Was last weekend, I believe. Where you contact museums. I did one a year ago. It was actually a submarine in Italy, which they turned into a submarine, or into a museum. And then they had VODA. I don't know if they'll do that again. That was Volunteers on the Air, where you contacted ARL volunteer members, instructors, examiners, other officers, and you got points.
Bob is feeling lonely. He needed someone to.
A lot of people just like to build equipment and, or build antennas. Like Viren has probably built what, just about every kind of antenna.
Or borrowed every.
People get into public service. There's a thing called MCOM, Emergency Management Communications. There's also ARES and RACES, which are amateur radio emergency services. RACES is also connected with Civil Defense Authority, so it's a combination of amateur radio and somebody that has a civil defense, whatever they call, you join it. Member, huh?
Homeland and paper.
Yeah. And then there's Skywarn, where they basically monitor weather conditions and report on them. You're Skywarn, right?
Yeah, you basically get trained by the National Weather Service. They do that locally out of Melbourne. And then you train as an amateur radio operator in weather conditions and sighting. And so you're another eyes. And so when you see something in your area through the radios, you can send information to the Weather Service. So I got a better picture of what's going on where than just a radar.
Yeah, I went to the open house at the new EOC and I did the weather service briefing. And I think they're saying we're expecting probably like a 20-year high on our storm season.
Yeah, that doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
There's local repeaters and networks a lot of people like to participate in. Repeater activity around here doesn't appear to be very active. The nets are about it,
Yeah.
but then there's also the digital voice networks. We have D-Star, DMR, and Fusion, which are all associated with different radio manufacturers, basically. DMR is most of the Chinese radios that support it. D-Star is ICOM and Fusion is Yaesu. Those are the two big Japanese manufacturers. A little bit about the exam. It's going to be called Element 2. The general exam would be Element 3, and the extra exam is called Element 4. Oh. She's trying to get in. Oh, okay. In the case of the technician or element 2, there's a question pool of 407 questions. And they will be all multiple choice. You get 4 possible answers, A, B, C, and D. You need to have 74% or 26 correct answers to pass. They're divided up into 10 supplements. And we're going to be doing sub-element 5 and a little bit of sub-element 6 today. Just kind of grouped in technical various groups. Each of these sub-elements will have maybe 3, 4, 5 subgroups. And in those groups, there may be a dozen questions. So turns out there's a total of 35 actual groups spread around. So you get 1 question from each group. When you go to take the test, you will need some form of ID, typically a driver's license. You need an FRN number. Rick already has one, I know, since he's got GMRS. So you only get 1 FCC registration number. And it's good for, use it for any license with the FCC. You have to go on to the FCC.gov site and register for one. It's free and it's pretty much instantaneous. You just put in name, address, email, that kind of information.
Be ready to get confused on that website.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I tell you.
I'm pretty sure the same company that developed the FCC website developed the FAA website.
More than likely, low bidder.
Yeah.
You should bring 2 pencils. It's in case you have to erase the answer sheet. Ballpoint pens don't work well. Bring a calculator if you need it. Typically, you won't need one for the technician exam unless you just have trouble multiplying and dividing. The recommended one is the TI 30X2S. They're like $14 at Walmart and places. You know, it's got a full scientific thing. Solar powered, so you don't even have to put batteries in it. You cannot take any notes in, but you can write anything you want on the back of the answer sheet. Some of the stuff we'll talk about later is little pie diagrams, things like that, that help people remember Ohm's law and power law.
Diagram, Siri, Apple.
Yeah. Most important thing is read the question carefully. Maybe read it twice. read all of the answers before you answer, because a lot of times you'll go down, oh, that seems right. But there may be one word or something in it that's off, so you need to read all of them. And in most cases, there are two of them that are out in left field, two of the answers that aren't even close. Unless you know nothing about the question. And then maybe 30–40% of the time, all of these choices are correct is the correct answer. And those they will sometimes fool you. Because that's one where, well, the first one's right. But then the second one's right. There's some reference books, if for anybody interested, and these slides are on Dropbox, if you want to look at them. The ARL manual, which I think they're up to around $30. You can get a little cheaper off of Amazon. It's probably got more material in it than the copy of the study guide I sent out. But it's not organized as well. There's a set of books on basic electronics, radio, and antennas that are very good. Of course, there's the Radio Amateur's Handbook, which is a really good book to have as a reference book. They're $50–$60, something like that.
That be the 1936 or 1939 edition?
That probably goes for a lot. The antenna book is similar. Great reference. It's another 2-inch thick or so book that's up there in the.
I think they're running a small discount on that antenna book right now.
And then they've got a fairly recent one on propagation called From Here to There, which is pretty good. There's some videos. The Dave Kassler, he's got, I don't know if he's up to 2,000. He's definitely well over 1,000 videos on Ask Dave, and he does all of the ARL courses. There's a couple, and there's links here if you go look at the slides on Dropbox on how an antenna works and electromagnetic radiation and different things about the radio spectrum and modulation. For somebody that really is more interested in the real basics, like the physics behind a lot of this, these lectures by Walter Lewin are fantastic. And then Kathy Loves Physics does a lot of historical stuff on about all these the physicists and people, you know, Tesla and all of them, and the real story, not what you have heard. Most of them really didn't do what you think they did. Somebody else actually did. There's a number, and this is just a short list of sites where you can go do practice exams. The ham study is probably the most popular one. The first one there is how you get to the ARL one. And as a non-member, you can still use that one. To do the general and extra, you actually have to be a ARL member in order to get access to it. And the same thing's true for the training videos. You can watch those without being a member. QRZ has some eHam. The Fast Track I used, that was pretty good.
Have you got your license yet?
I think. You should try to practice some of the sub elements as we go along, because most of these set up where instead of doing an entire exam, you can just do a particular sub element or just a group. And when you get to the point where you're consistently above 80% on an entire exam, you should have no trouble passing it. You won't necessarily get a perfect score, but that's just bragging rights. You know, still the same license, whether you got 26 right or you got 35 right.
So I see the coffee herbs and cups.
Oh, they're in the car.
wanna
You can go
speak
get
your
'em.
deal?
Yeah. All right, where's my